Yeah, this is another one from Mariah. I've not heard of this. Obviously, I know David Icke, but Arizona Wilder, and but she also popped up. Of I guess because we've been doing kind of this type of thing. But she popped up. But when I saw she popped up on my YouTube, um, I was thinking that's who, yeah, Mariah was on about. So we'll do this one. I think this is the right interview because Mariah's link it didn't work, but I think this is the right one. It's David Icke interviewing her, but she's another MKUltra like Kathy O'Brien. But yeah, let's go.
Can we start at the beginning and can you tell us the story of what's happened in your life from the very start?
Um, okay, what I can tell you is that um, before I started looking into my life, back in 1989, I was starting to have flashes of things, and my life was not what it seemed to be, which is why I started looking into it. And what I found out was that I had a lot of missing time, and a whole lot of missing time, as to what had occurred in my life. And when I started looking into what had happened in my life, it was the only way that at the time that I knew, was to start going to see a therapist. Within a year, I was talking about memories of being sexually abused by my father, which was part of what was supposed to happen. And I was talking then, starting to talk about mind control issues, and I was talking about ritual abuse issues at the time, and I didn't have the whole thing put together. It's taken me years, all these years, it's taken approximately almost 10 years to put this together, what has happened to me. And in the process, I have lost everything that I ever had in my life, and anything I held dear in my life. I
Anyone else notice a similarity with that runs through these people like her, Kathy O'Brien, the two kids from here? There's like a vacancy in their eyes. There's like they all have the same kind of like I don't know, like well, I guess because they've all been through serious shit basically. But yeah, they all have that kind of vacant facial thing.
was bred for this role that I fulfill, and it was planned from before my birth, and it was because of the bloodline of my mother's family, which comes down through Ireland, but before that it began in France. It was through the Marquis de Stac, which he came to Ireland and changed the name to Stack, and then I was chosen, and from what the birth was planned, my parents were forced to move down to this area for the reason that the High Council is down here, which is, there are 6 councils of 13 in this country, and the High Council is down here.
We're talking the United States?
The United States, yes. And so from the time that I was a baby, I was being abused and traumatized, and on purpose, for the mind control that they need someone to go through to do whatever they say, to be as just a puppet in that they can control every move. And you don't remember, I didn't remember a lot of things, because I have, as a result of all of this mind control, split off many parts. that all hold memories, hold feelings, hold programs, hold information, and I've been working very hard to pull all of that up. And it's been a long, slow process for me because there don't seem to be a lot of people in the field that I only felt was the only way I could go was psychiatric and psychological. They don't seem to know what is really going on, and I believe that a lot of them are afraid of being sued should they suggest something, and so they cannot lead or suggest, and it's been a process of me having to trigger myself to remember and be around people that can help me with that can't really be touched by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation.
So what happened? You say you were abused as a child as part of this compartmentalizing of your mind. What went on after that, as you got older?
Well, they start with wanting to make you an obedient slave at first, and so they do a lot of sensory deprivation, they do a lot of sensory overload, and they switch between the two, and they do out-and-out torture. They take a small child and they electroshock. In my case, it was electroshock to the brain, and they would take away my chance to sleep. They kept me awake for many hours at night, would not let me sleep. And I was also told things as, this was before the age of 5, I was told things such as, they would make me drink water, and they would say, if you pass urine, you're going to have to drink it. And they would make me drink it. And if you have a bowel movement, you're going to have to eat the feces, which is also what happened to me. And then they would play, there was a programmer that was programming me, a very infamous person in history who actually has been in this country, and he was known as Dr. Green. Who he actually was Dr. Mengele Joseph Mengele from the concentration camps in Germany, and he stayed a lot at China Lake Naval Weapons Station out here in Southern California, in the desert area.
Dr. Green, that sounds well familiar, but because I was thinking, you can see where this comes from, like military. I did a video which wasn't really to do with this, but it was the scariest man in the Vietnam War. I didn't even think because, like I say, it wasn't that type of, it wasn't this type of, I wasn't in this type of headspace to think about it. But someone wrote in the comments, MKUltra, because this guy this American soldier was just, honestly, it's unbelievable. If you look on my channel, you'll find the scariest man in the Vietnam War. He was like taking on whole forces by himself, basically, and just having no fear. And um but you can see in, like, even not in as far as she's going with the real psychological torture, even though you know that definitely happened, but ultimately that is what soldiers become anyway. Like I say, it's not like a soldier's training is basically breaking down the person that was and rebuilding as how you want them. You break them, you literally break them down and build them back up again. Um, and it's again like programming. Like you can hear the, like she's saying, programming, and now it's because of the world we live in now. It's just that that's a common term. We know what, because of programming, computers, program like. But to use the word in this context is back then. I know you had program, but I don't even think TV would have been seen as manipulation and mind control and whatever. But back then. But yeah, um, yeah, programming. Like that's such a. It's just we know what that is now, but to say it back then in mental programming and yeah. But then if you think of it in a TV setting, you watch programs, which is yeah, that's crazy. But yeah,
I would be around this man a lot, and he used to tell me that the scar that he had on the left cheek of his face was actually from, he was into fencing, and that it was from that, but actually the scar on his cheek was from one of his own programming techniques, that he would put a child in a box and with a sword and tell the child to defend the box, even if it meant his own death. Then he'd tell another child to break into the box, and which this child would do, and then the other child would then jump out of the box and shove the sword or the lance straight through the other child. And at one point he got into it where this child actually got him in the face with the sword. And he would wear a huge emerald ring on his left hand on this middle finger. And he would twist this emerald around and for programming, and he was into using long-colored ribbons of different colors, and you had to choose a certain ribbon, or you were given a certain ribbon, and that meant that this certain thing was going to happen to you. And it was like picking sticks out, or drawing sticks out of a hand, out of someone's hand. I saw games of Russian roulette played where it was chosen beforehand that a child would die, and the child would put the gun up to his head and pull the trigger, and this child would end up dying. But it was meant to scare all of us, keep us in terror, as there were many other children that were around me that went through the same thing. I have run into people from my childhood that have known me, and I've recognized their names, and even if they change their names and change their hair color, as I have done, they have recognized me, or I have recognized them, and I know their name. They know my name. There isn't any way for this to have happened. It's just beyond coincidence. And when you get older, I mean, they start taking, this programmer in particular, Mengele, would take me to rituals. I went to rituals with him all over this country, and in Britain and in France, and it was known by intelligence agencies in this country that this man was here. They brought him here.
Is that Project Paperclip you're talking about?
Yeah. Through the OSS. And my family, or my so-called family, are all DID. They have not. They are very well programmed, and they have not sought help. They have not gone in and tried to figure out what's happened. They believe they've had this certain kind of life that they've had, and as far as they are concerned, I am crazy. And they have much different memories of what I have, and I was always told certain things by my parents that my sisters were never told.
that's crazy because I think it's in our country. It might be America, but I think it's in our country of two twin boys. Or it might be. I don't know if it's. But basically, they was abused and went through horrific abuse as children. Then they got in like a car accident as adults or whatever. One of them lost their memory, and he didn't. the twin didn't, because the other brother had no knowledge of what he went through as a child, and the other brother kind of kept it from him because his brother could now live a life without being burdened. But then again, like she said earlier, that I think that it's always in you, even, and it will come out eventually. You'll have, yeah. The brain is a crazy thing.
And biologically, I have to add at this point that
Oh,
my mother is.
that's another thing I was going to say. There's another woman I watched, um, where basically she's saying a similar kind of thing as this, or that she went through abuse. She tells a horrific story as well about her father killing a black family. It's in America and doing like KKK stuff. But same thing with her. The rest of her family have no memory of any of it, and they just say she's nuts. Um, yeah.
Mother. I am not biologically related to my father. And this has to do with the bloodlines, and his was considered impure. And this is all about purity of the bloodline. And that is why I am involved in this. There are people that are involved in this that it is not so much because of bloodline that they have the ability to dissociate and be used as slaves by these people.
You say that you come from a certain bloodline, and there is this obsession with bloodlines that this Brotherhood Illuminati have. Why is that?
Because what first started coming out was about the Aryans, and the purity of the blood. And what it's all about is that the blood and the menstrual blood contains something that is important for the propagation of this race that is controlling things on this planet. And these people that are in the organization that the Council of 13 is under, and they have something called the Grand Druid Council, or the Octagon, they're called the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are actually run by these 13 bloodlines, which are all of the royal families in Europe and in England. And they need the blood because they are, in fact, not human. They take human shape. They are reptilians. And they need the blood. The blood helps them maintain their reptilian shape, and it helps them maintain.
Yeah, it's true. It's like our leaders have changed throughout in the UK and in England. But you can trace our royal family, even though their last stop was Germany, but you can trace them back basically to every ruling power ever. You can trace that family through it. You can literally trace them across the world to land in the UK. And if you think about it, it's why it's so easy for our elites to just chuck away our country and our identity, because it isn't theirs. But if in terms of the actual people of the country, I saw something where they found a graveyard, like a lost graveyard in England somewhere. Um, Dug up the bones, tested the bones. The bones of the people in the graveyard were like, it was like a 500-year-old graveyard, that had just been forgotten and lost. They were related still to the people that lived in that town. The bones of them people, so 500 years, the people are still the same, but the ruling elite, like she said, they kind of, especially ours, our royal family, you can literally mark their path across the world to land in our country.
Their sanity, and it helps them to live in this world because they are not from this world.
Does that relate to what the Nazis call vril power and what the Hindus call the serpent power in the blood?
Yes, the blood has something. It has something in it. It has secretions from the pituitary gland and from pineal gland, and it has a very strong drug in it that they also, I mean, this is the one that keeps them from going crazy, and it's like heroin or like endorphins, and it's much stronger. But what they need is, for it to be secreted in the blood, is they need terrorization of their victims before they are killed for their blood, or if a young woman is beginning to menstruate, they need the menstrual blood, and they have to terrorize them to get this to come out in the blood and be secreted in the blood.
Is this the what other people have told me about, that at the point of great terror, like the point of sacrifice, there's an adrenaline that enters the bloodstream? Is this what they're looking for?
Yes, that and this other element comes and secretes out through the blood.
And the thing is she ain't lying about the blood thing and the women's menstrual thing either, because as a voodoo, like, every culture has its dark side, like Satanism, and like in Africa, it's the voodoo. But yeah, and women using their period blood in, yeah, it's that's also, which is weird if you think about it. Kind of makes you think there may be something to it if two separate evil sides of the world, voodoo and Satanism, are kind of, they've come to the same realization, if that makes sense.
Comes out through the blood at that time, and it's at that point they are actually staring into the eyes of the head of at some of these rituals, or at a reptilian. They are staring into the eyes of this person, and they're held. It's a hypnotic gaze these reptilians have, and it holds the victim in an absolute trance, in a trance of terror, and then they are killed at that moment as they are staring into their eyes. And not only do they can't hold their shape when this happens. The
human shape.
The human shape they cannot hold. They go back into reptilian shape as this is happening, because it's like an animalistic type of excitement of the kill, and they oftentimes they can't. They will just rip into the victim and eviscerate them and start eating the flesh of this person too, and the fat from the intestinal area is highly valued, as they use it on their skin. And they will drink, and they drink the blood, and the blood is highly sought after, and it goes according also to rank within these creatures, as to who gets what when. And their sacrifices have increased in the last, it started increasing in the early 80s. The amount that they were doing is increased, and they use a lot.
That's crazy, because the satanic panic is the 80s. All the cases, well, there's, and I think the first one is in Canada, and in the Catholic, we did a video on that. The Canadian schools for the natives. Um, but there was ritual that was like the first ever satanic thing. But I mean, the UK has had hundreds. It's probably most common in the UK. What's she saying? Yeah, let's finish off. I got a lot of things.
Druidic holidays to do this, but they have other days too. They've mixed all of these satanic and what are called satanic holidays and Druidic holidays, and in order to have these rituals, which ritual seems to be important to them, but they also use it in order to drink this blood. They seem to need more.
Have you any idea why it's increased since the ages?
So there are changes going on in the earth. It seems they're not able to hold their shape like they once were able to, and people see them shapeshift more and more, and they need the blood to try and maintain it, to try and maintain their human form. I believe there's a time coming that because of what I've been told, when they are not going to bother having to hold that human shape as they had to before, and they want that time to come. It's almost upon us.
So when you're talking about the fact that the veil is lifting on these reptilians so that people can see them far more easily and far more often, does this relate in any way to the fact that there is this desire to bring in this rigid structure, including microchipping and many other things, across the year 2000, which has become known as the New World Order? Is that coming in because it is known that the people are going to see what the game is, and there has to be control of the people at that time?
Yes, it's very connected. I started talking about the New World Order back in 1990, and I was very psychologically and physically affected so much by what was coming out. I wasn't watching television. I was not aware that certain individuals in this country, George Bush, were talking about the New World Order. I was talking about it because that is what was coming out, and knowing that the first time that inside of myself that I'd heard it was in conjunction with the Nazis, and that came from Mengele. And I started realizing that there was something going on, and then it scared me.
Yeah, well, pause it there. It's funny, yeah, that whole thing of America taking Nazi scientists. That was one of them things that for years and years and years it was that's a crazy conspiracy. Of course they wouldn't. Why would they? To then there was no ground where anyone ever really went, yeah, it actually happened and that's crazy. Everyone now just goes, yeah, of course they did. These were the smartest minds in the world, even though they was evil. It's much better to have them on you. It's like, yeah, but what she's talking about with the fear in the child, and that's the thing. If you, I think it's Wilhelm Reich's orgone energy, which is orgasm, Freud's libido. That it was Freud's again. Both of them, I think, saw the most powerful form of the libido is the sexual form. But then you got Carl Jung, who said it's not just a sexual thing. And it makes sense with what she's saying. It's fear. It's any type of intense feeling. But yeah, yeah, this is a great one. This is a great one to do because this is like real early doors of this kind of stuff. Like these types of people, David Icke and them. Well, now there's people that legit believe it, and people are aware. People believe this. I mean, there's a lot of people that have no idea about this stuff still. But these people back then, it's like you gotta admire it because it's not even the case of as well. Like some people would just start a YouTube channel and just start saying crazy things because it gets attention. There was none of that back then. All right, maybe you could sell a book, but in a market that was completely controlled. I mean, it's still controlled now. Like you have to watch what you say and whatever. But to see these people back then talking about this kind of stuff and being really the first people to even enter it. But and what she's saying as well, you talk about the reptilian thing, it's like our fight or flight is reptilian. We have a reptilian um base DNA, a base animal instinct. Um and which if you think about it, it can happen to humans too. In what she's talking about with them not being able to hold their cover, that happens with actual humans. We all act a certain way to pretend that we're not animals and we're humans, but still our base instincts, fear, uh, sex, hunger, is where you're going to see the real human come out of, well, not the human, the animal come out of the human is in them situations, which would make sense that it would be for these reptilians. But this is going to be a great because this is going to be a real, by the sounds of it, yeah, I've heard this stuff from David Icke a long, long time ago. But to be fair, even with David Icke, a lot of what the lecture I watched of David Icke's and the ones I watched is not. It is to do with the reptilians, but he goes off into all sorts of different things, into world events and um, how the media is controlled and all these different things. So yeah, to hear about the reptilians, and I guess that she was one of the first people. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, that's part one. Sweet.